So that concludes the very brief overview of Grow Your Own programs, what they are. And now I'd like to turn it over to Ron Coleman with the Texas Education Agency to share what TEA has been doing over the last few years within the context of its Grow Your Own program. So Ron, if you would like to share your webcam, I'll turn it over to you.
Excellent. Thank you, Liz, and welcome everyone. As mentioned, my name is Ron Coleman. I'm the Educator Recruitment and Development Specialist here at the agency. I'm going to take you all through a few slides here to speak to the work that we have done, the work that we're currently doing, and the work that we will be doing in the future. So as Liz mentioned, it's well established that teacher labor markets are highly localized. There are national statistics citing that nearly 60% of educators teach within 20 miles of where they attended high school. So historically, many policies addressing teacher shortages are from a national and state supply level. But the most cited strategy for increasing local teacher supply is to continue to grow your own educators. So here at the agency and the LEAs that we serve, we understand that our future teachers, our future educators, our future administrators are in our high school seats. And we're currently, the other half of that is they're currently serving and supporting certified educators at the classroom level. So paraprofessionals, long-term subs, teachers' aides, who live in these communities and know the school systems well. So a lot of the support that we'll talk about here is at a more short-term solution to the problem there, and our high school students a more long-term solution to that. So the mission here, as you can see on the screen, is our statewide competitive grant focuses on two primary drivers: diversity and quality of the teaching workforce, and then elevating the perception of the teaching workforce here within our GYO communities. And the primary driver there is through increased spread and depth of the ENT courses across the state. So the statement here, you can't be what you can't be, kind of holds doubly true. If we can go back to that slide. Thank you. So you can't be what you can't see holds doubly true here. Diverse students need to see diverse educators. And students who want to be educators, or students who don't yet know that they want to be educators, need to see teacher prep programs in their high schools. And see student teaching in elementary and middle schools. On the next slide, you'll see the data that shows why this is an urgent matter. We recreated this graph originally published by the 74million.org and their work with PDK poll in 2018. Some of the less quantitative and numerical sightings from that survey and that article are that teaching can be a thankless job, and parents citing that there's too much chaos in schools and potentially being dangerous to be a teacher. The article also cites that educators are extremely well respected in some instances, just pay is down. So we see that student interest is down. We see that across the nation, less and less interest from parents as well, and pushing students into that. So what do we do to support current and future educators, like despite the declining perception and despite some statistics and articles that show declining interest? On the next slide, we build off the intentional work that Commissioner Morath and his team of rural superintendents and administrators put together prior to 2018 to provide a grant program that focuses on eliminating barriers to teacher recruitment and focuses on teacher retention at the district and campus level. So the last piece of data here before going into our theory of action here at the agency and more specifics to program requirements. The next slide will show why the focus on recruitment of diverse educators, in addition to needing to see who you are and needing to see diverse educators. In 2017, Texas ranked highest on this list of 11 Southeastern and South Central states in terms of the demographic diversity gap between students across the state and educators across the state. The biggest gap there being between Hispanic and Latinx students and Hispanic and Latinx educators. So again, also why the focus on small and rural is something that came out of the task force The graph on the right here shows that the attrition rate within small districts, and we're defining small here as under 500 students, we see that that attrition rate back in 2017 was twice the rate of large districts, and we're defining large here as 50,000 or more. And across the gradient there from 50,000 all the way to 5, you will see a complete direct proportionality in that attrition rate to, or inverse proportionality there, but directly correlated between size of district and lower attrition rate. So what our team has been working on here on the next slide is this thought process behind the continuation of Grow Your Own, the continuation of program guidelines, the revamping of supports, is that if we continue to incentivize districts to grow their own education and training programs through support, financial, human capital, state level resources, if we reduce barriers to certification for high school students and paraprofessionals, some of those financial, some of those time constraints, and we provide guidance for districts to support future educators to and through EPPs, and we provide personalized and cohort support for ENT implementation, ENT meaning education and training courses, then we'll get at those following two drivers in our mission: elevating the perception and increasing interest, especially among our GYO districts, and will improve the quality and diversity of teacher pipelines, teacher systems, especially in small and rural districts. Now, the grant requirements to receive funding, we have split into three different drivers here. So on the left, you'll see districts, in the middle, paraprofessionals, and on the right, certified educators. On the next slide, we'll go into even more detail of what comes from these grant requirements. But back to the slide before this, districts need to show evidence of sustainability plan, recruitment plan, an equitable selection process, must be providing candidate support and commitment to the stipends outlined in the grant and the program requirements. For paraprofessionals, they cannot already have a teaching certification. They need to have 75 credit hours at the beginning of the start of the grant implementation years, an agreement to complete the requirements and serve in the district, and districts set that time between 2 and 4 years of commitment. Not new educators to the district, growing your own, so already educators within that district, and currently working with students in a paraprofessional, long-term sub, or teacher's aide capacity. And finally, stipends for our certified educators, those educators that we want teaching the highly localized and highly supportive teacher prep programs, either for regular credit or dual credit, need to hold a Texas certification, need to be currently employed, need to show evidence of student success, a willingness to pilot the new curriculum if the district does not already have a high quality curriculum, and must be the teacher of record within that district. So now that we've gone over the requirements, the next slide will show the funding amounts that districts apply for within the competitive grant process. And so on the left-hand side, within what we call Pathway 1, it's our high school students first. Students are not receiving funding specifically, but districts are receiving $8,000 or $10,000 for each campus based on a certain criteria. So $8,000 for campuses that already have education and training courses, and $10,000 per campus for campuses that are starting brand new education and training courses, or $10,000 for each campus creating dual credit opportunities for students. The second piece on the left there in orange is our certified educator stipends. So that is $5,000 over 2 years, or $2,500 annually for all certified educators teaching the ENT courses within the grant, and $10,000 over 2 years, or $5,000 annually for our educators who are teaching dual credit courses. And then Pathway 2 is our paraprofessional pathway. So this is bachelor's degree completion and teaching certification in high needs areas. This is $18,000 spread across 2 years for the completion of both of those. or $7,500 over the course of the grant for completion of certification work only. Some strengths that we've seen since the implementation of this grant and continuation of it. We're seeing really strong success, and you'll hear from 2 districts later on about the ability of GYO grantees and educator prep programs to work together to recruit and prepare diverse educators. Right now, the recruitment rate of diverse educators is matching within districts more so than the recruitment outside of GYO. And that's at the national level as well. We saw those statistics on the map. And the intentional use of funding by grantees to create future teacher centers and programs is something that's happening and is really innovative that we're seeing. So where are we going? We're focusing our attention on revising the high quality curriculum that is used for the ENT course cluster. And we're onboarding over 400 districts through the T-Class Common Application. Some of you might ask, what is that T-Class acronym? Others on here might understand it from work with the agency. Over the past 6 months, the agency decided to open up a Texas COVID Learning Acceleration Support. That is a long way of saying a district application that is a one-stop shop for a set of targeted school supports. So this is additional state and federal funding aligned to the Learning Acceleration Framework, meaning that districts have the opportunity to make one common application across a variety of learning accelerated supports here. So you'll see one application, 15 potential grant opportunities, and over $1 billion in supports that are going to be awarded between now and the spring of 2024. And Grow Your Own is one of these initiatives. So as we progress into the 4th cohort of the Grow Your Own competitive grant and the 1st cohort of T-Class funding here, the agency remains committed to examining evidence of success that we've had, both at the district level, at the agency level, and in progress towards these individual and collective goals that districts set out in their applications. Student outcomes, sustained teacher placement. So we're asking many questions of ourselves and of our great districts here in Texas. 3 of those that stand out here that I will mention, and then we'll pass off to our next speaker, are really looking at the data and determining how do the career trajectories of high school students who participate in GYO grant-sponsored ENT courses, how does that differ from other students pursuing education? And we know that's not a simple answer to find, but we'll continue working on that over the years. What's the relationship between participation in GYO programs and performance in educator prep programs? And our participants in GYO programs at the high school level, those that enter the classroom, more effective and more likely to be retained than other early career teachers. So I thank you all, and I will be on here for questions with the rest of our participants.
Great. Thanks, Ron. Before we shift to Darcy, I do have a quick question for you that came up in the chat. Patrick Halliday had asked, you were a couple slides back, you were talking about the credit hours for teacher candidates. And Patrick asked, you'd mentioned 75 credits. And he wondered, does that mean that there is not a requirement to have a BA or a BS for entrance? And I believe the answer to that, I'll let you answer.
Yeah, thank you, Liz. And Patrick, thank you for the question. Yes, so if we go back to the 7th slide here, Liz, that might be helpful. Excellent, excellent. So we have 2 stipends for paraprofessionals. So there are some paraprofessionals who have completed a BA or BS. They are, in essence, eligible for the smaller stipend amount because they only need, the only barrier to full-time certified educator status is their certification coursework and tests. Then there are paraprofessionals who have not yet completed their BA or BS. So to eliminate some of the barriers to completion there, we have a longer and higher amount of funding. So longer program length, more requirements, more funding for those who need that. And I think Dory just put in the chat a link to our website that has more information there as well. Also, a note that I'm happy to connect with anyone outside of this webinar. I believe they will be sending out panelist information. So feel free to contact me via email for more detailed questions.
Great. Thanks so much, Ron. And just in case others did not see the chat, there was a question about where the funding came from, and TEA provides grants to districts who apply for GYO funding. And there was state funding that was provided through the legislature for this program to TEA to then, is that correct, Ron?
Yes. So for the competitive grant process, Grow Your Own is under state funding with Rider 41, but the T-Class initiative is federal ESSER funding.
Great. Excellent. And we have a couple additional questions that came in, but we will reserve those to the Q&A session.